Welcome back to SDRing. I am your host, one of your hosts. I'm your co-host, Steve Schmidt.
Hey, I am Gabe Lulo. Nice to see you again, Steve. This is going to be awesome, man. I think episode 2.
It's episode 2. Season
we're
1,
on number
episode
2. Yes.
2.
Season 1, episode 2. I feel like I'm like a Netflix special here.
We had a good, honest, good feedback from episode 1. Limited. It's not going to be the 1,000 plus we're expecting here in a couple of months as people are going to be lining up at the door to get the advice from Mr. Gabe Lulo, heading up one of the largest SDR agencies in the world at Alleyoop. I get to see a bunch day-to-day. Gabe, I got to tell you, before we get in here, today I kind of felt like a G. I was, sipping coffee early this morning. I was kind of playing around, looking at some LinkedIn DMs. And I always organize them, right? So I'm always starring them, tasking them. And I looked like from 3 weeks ago, and I was like, okay, there was 4. This guy asked me for something. I gave him the vidyard, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't respond. And I came back to him again. And the third time, I came back to him. There's no response. I said, you know what? He gave me his email. I'm going to email him. Email said, hey, Steve from LinkedIn is the subject line. Steve from LinkedIn. I just said, hey, maybe this will work better. I know LinkedIn DMs are a dumpster fire. He said, thank you so much. They are a dumpster fire. And then he said, hey, by the way, where are you priced? I said, da-da-da. He said, interesting. I have a question. And I responded, and he said, I'm CCing my assistant. She'd like to set something up for Friday. And so I was like, there you go. I was like, I still got it on a daily basis, finding out those things where we wish and we hope that we can teach someone to do that. It's really hard to get SDRs to want to see the benefit of being that organized when you're early on, because it just feels like work. You're not getting any of the good stuff. You're only putting in tasks, right?
Yeah. I love how you did that. I started doing it too. And it's funny, we just started doing the same thing recently, and we haven't talked about it yet, which is pretty funny because we talk a lot. Someone sent it to me and they said, hey, listen, no rush, right? No pressure. Let me know when you're ready. I'm not a pitch slap kind of guy. And he literally wrote that out to me. And I'm like, I love this message, right? Like I love everything about it. So I responded because I love that last line. And I started putting that in my, connections of people that I want to connect with, like truly genuinely, authentically connect with, because, you're afraid, right? Like LinkedIn's a dumpster fire, like you said. So you want to send something authentic, but then everyone thinks, oh, it's not real. So they're going to keep sending it to me. So just, you kind of ignore it. But when you just put it out there and say, hey, listen, ball's in your court, not going to pitch slap you, not going to come at you 1,000 times. LinkedIn's a dumpster fire. And just kind of like calling that elephant in the room out gets people to want to engage. And I think it's by far significantly working, by the way. And I think that worked for you as well. That's awesome.
What's really interesting is content. We talk about being powerful. We're doing it right now, right? We're spending an hour out of our day to record this, not so we can listen back to it on the treadmill. Trust me, like it happens, right? Got to critique myself and Gabe and text each other and be like, oh my God, that was kind of good. Actually, like, I'd kind of watch this too, or whatever that is.
Right.
But pushing it forward to say, like, I think one of the toughest things is I still want to pitch them. Like, And I've got data here that says, I thought this would be interesting. 24% of the customers from year 1 Magnetic came from DMs, meaning a response was originated from an automated cold DM. 70% of the customers came from referral, right?
Right.
4% came from outbound. Okay, so now you break that down and you go, well, geez, you didn't have 100 customers. No, there's an aggregate there, right? But when you look at the mix of that, I could go back and tell you that the outbound fragmented customer and one of the people from DMs were the first to fall off, meaning we had 3 of the 12 fall off. And I felt like because the approach was as such, it was probably lower barrier of trust and they had less burn time to get to know your content, you as a person. What are your thoughts on that, Gabe?
Well, content right now is massive for us. And we have also a very big outbound motion internally. We call it a home team internally, right? We drink our own Kool-Aid, we do our own things. And it's great because it does the sales for us in the first minute, right? When an SDR calls you from us about us, it's a true judge of what it is that we do.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, a lot of times we're getting on a demo and it's like, well, the reason why I got on this call is because your SDR was so good. And if they're that good and that's what you do, I needed to learn more, right? Like, so that's essentially our message. I think content's very much the case in your world, right? Like your content that you put out, you're
Yeah.
promoting doing content for people. So that has to be amazing. And I think that's probably a big resource for your inbound, like you mentioned.
Well, listen
right?
though, I mean, I'll take your outbound people all day long. Do not get me wrong. I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I love that when I had the outbound agency, the SDRs would come back and say like, well, they said like if they're as good as you,
Yeah.
like we have to have you. And I'd be like, but they're not as good as you. And that's why. And they're pretty good, right? But they're not as good as you. So dang it, because we had our AEs doing outbound, and so they were really good.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, oh, and it's kind of like people come in here and they go, man, I want to have the results you do. And I'm like, okay, cool. Do it for 3.5 years nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
And do it when it's not fun, and do it when it starts to suck a little bit. And you're like, man, this has been 2 years. This isn't quite as much fun anymore.
Right. But I mean, to your other point, like content to me, it's amazing with what's going on from a recruiting standpoint. People are being attracted to our company left and right because they know what we're doing. From a client perspective, it's very significantly has grown our opportunities for sure.
You guys hear about it all the time. They show up to the meeting, right? And they're coming in and saying like, hey, like that's not why they're there, but they're saying, I saw your content.
Oh yeah.
Or they're in they're in the pipeline, and they see it while they're in the pipeline, right?
For sure. And before, like instead of just sending over a case study between when you book the meeting and when the meeting is supposed to happen, we don't do that anymore. Yeah. We say, here's 100 videos on our LinkedIn, or here's our LinkedIn profile, or here's a playlist on YouTube of shows that we've done recently to kind of look under the hood about our philosophy and what we believe in and what we think is important. And so between now and then, take a look at our content, and then we'll talk in a week or talk in 2 days. And that's how we're promoting it. And they're doing it. And they're coming in and saying, wow, it's so great of what you put out there.
Something you guys do. I want to just talk. This is so fun for me to talk about nuance. We all think we have these secrets because, well, we don't share them. So it's hard to learn. You guys have a Zoom video. I love waiting for you to show up to Zoom. Yeah. It's like a free commercial for you guys every time.
It is.
And I can't tell you anybody else I meet with who takes advantage of that. I'm sure you hear that all the time.
I would say 4 out of 5 Zoom meetings I get into, 4 out of 5 mention that in the first 30 seconds of my call.
And they go, we should do that. And they
how'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Like they always ask. And
that's content.
For the executives that I meet with, I tie in my VP of technology, and he tells them exactly how to do it. Like,
boom.
It's pretty simple, but it is powerful. And again, we hired a full-time videographer, and we're doubling down on video, obviously. And so that is something that's powerful. I mean, look at all the socials, look at TikTok, look at all the social media out there. Like everyone's consuming video. And so you got to do it, man.
You got to do it. Now, okay. So you just heard it, guys. If you want to know, you got to see this. They got to book a Zoom meeting with you to see it. If not, we'll get some B-roll in here of this, because if you saw it, you'd be like, oh my God, there's a free billboard before every Zoom meeting I have, and I'm not even taking advantage of it. The other thing I found was when I have a podcast, what I'm doing is before the podcast, the day before, it's not, hey, reminder, it's a reminder. And by the way, here's the details, right? I really look forward to it. By the way, here's the link if you want to watch other episodes, because you're probably cramming, because if you're anything like me, you forgot this thing was even happening. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, I had Keenan on today. He's like, God, thank God you said that, man, because I was going to cancel. I was like, Steve, Steve Schmidt. And he's like, and then I got that, and I was like, oh, it's got to be you, because only you would do that. And then the meeting gets over, and you send another one that says this, and this is what I send personally. Hey, thanks so much for being on the podcast. This is an automated message, but I just want to show you, or thank you so much, and let you know in the next 7 to 10 days, you'll get the micro clips. They're yours. And if you know anybody who would have, that's my referral chance, right?
Right.
And so I'm using that to say, thank you. I'm going to give you something, and then you might give me something, and you might not even do it till you're reminded when we give you the videos. You might go, oh, thank you. Oh, that's right. Hey, Gabe, you know what? I thought of this person. Yeah. And that's that golden moment where referral opportunity, content, people who aren't doing it show up and they get a good discovery call, right? They probably listen to the gong call, but you can do that too. You can do all of it and be the best fucking sales team in the world, right?
Yep.
Like you guys.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I just gave you a big compliment. That's good. We just called ourselves the best sales managers, CEOs, and sales teams in the world on our own podcast. I feel like Jake Paul.
Oh man!
Can we talk about that for a second? This guy's fighting Mike Tyson.
Tyson's going to get him, right?
He is going to fuck him up so bad.
100%. 100%.
He's got old man like energy.
Dude, Tyson is going to crush. He's never not crushed. He's going to absolutely crush.
And everybody wants him to crush. That's the thing, is like everybody just wants to see Jake Paul, who, like, oddly enough, if you really go back and take the time, if you're older like me, oh yeah, he started on YouTube. Like, he was a YouTube creator in his mom's basement.
Yeah, literally.
And then came everything else, which goes to show you, like, oh geez, like that guy's fighting Mike Tyson. And now he's trolling him online, like with an ear in his mouth. And I'm just like, oh my God. And then Jake Paul said he wants to kill Mike Tyson in the fight. He wants it to be his death. I mean,
it's crazy.
This makes this boring. This is nothing.
Right.
We have nothing to talk about, I guess.
Yeah. I really want Mike to win. I really do. I think it's gonna be awesome. When's the fight? Do you know the dates?
No, it's coming up, man.
Okay.
It's coming up. There's the idea that Mike Tyson was the scariest person when I grew up. I remember seeing him fight. He had the black trunks on. I remember, like, this guy looks kind of fucked up. Like, he's not right in the head. And when anybody's not quite right in the head in a fight, you're kind of like, well, I mean, anything's going to happen here. This is, I've never even, I mean, I maybe got in a tiny little fight in college that lasted 2 seconds. I have no idea what it's like to be punched in the face.
Right.
And let alone multiple times. So who are we to talk, Gabe? I don't think, looking at you and I right now, that we look like we're going to fight.
No, I don't like pain.
On to newsletters, no pain. Gabe, you released your newsletter this weekend, and SDRs don't not listen, because this isn't about you writing a newsletter. It's not saying that SDRs aren't capable of it. I'm going to present another idea to you. Thought leaders like you, Gabe, leaders like you are starting to spin up newsletters because you have something to say. You have followings. There are millions of people with newsletters on LinkedIn, so it's not that rare. It's pretty rare that people actually read them, though. Talk to me about your first experience. What was the what was the feedback you got? Did you feel like it's any different analytically? And I'm going to tell you from an SDR standpoint what I would do if I was trying to prospect you.
Well, it's interesting because I actually like newsletters, right? And when I was talking about this, about putting a newsletter together, it was mixed emotions. Like, some people like, don't do that. And the reason why, and I said, well, why is that? Like, well, I don't really read them. And then when I talked to somebody who said, or many people that said, yeah, absolutely do that. And I said, well, why is that? And they're like, well, I read them all the time. Yeah. So there is a massive audience for it, but I would say it's not everybody. You know, some people like watching video and that's how they learn. And some people like reading and that's how they learn. And that's just kind of like left brain, right brain, right? But at the end of the day, I love newsletters, but I'm also pretty fanatical because every time someone has a newsletter, they connect with you. You get that auto connection of, hey, join my newsletter. And I don't say yes to all of them because I don't want to get bombarded with every single newsletter out there. But I look at the profile of the person. By the way, if you look at their content, see what they're all about, see what's everything they're doing. And then if that is a newsletter that resonates with me, that I want in my channel, because I am really protective of like what my eyes are looking at, I will absolutely subscribe to it. So that's how I look at that. And I love putting it together. And I think we have an overwhelming amount of subscribers in a very short order.
Almost 1,000 in a week.
Yeah. It's pretty
Not
crazy.
a week. I mean, it's been 3 days, 4 days.
3 days, 1,000 people. And I don't have, a huge following like you and many others on LinkedIn. So I think that was pretty exciting to see.
That's
but at the end of the day, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. And I'm more excited about like what people are, like what they're actually reading is gold. Like we're saying things that are not ideas or theories or, cool things to talk about or buzzwords. Like we're saying like, this is the shit that we're doing every day. And this is what's working. And this is what's not working. So do this. So I
loved your sales math, by the way, dude. That was like, CEOs, listen up. Give us the high level on you can go as deep as you want to, but it makes as much sense as anything else to me on calling like the differential on a subject line and the output of revenue.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I'm a math guy. Like I am very mathematically driven and always been that way. And so it's funny, like when I applied to schools for college, I applied to all the engineering schools and the business schools because I literally didn't know what I was going to do, whether it was going to be engineering or whether it was going to be business. So when I look at sales, I knew how to talk. So I said, okay, let's just do business. Yeah. I have an actual finance degree and an economics degree. So when I'm looking at this, like I'm a numbers guy. Mm-hmm. And so everything that I look at is number specific, it's data driven. And we decided to select cold email and look at how that looks, what's going on right now. And we put numbers to it and we put specific scenarios and different types of scenarios, and we broke it down very specifically. And it turns out, it works, and if you know how to do it, so it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, really high level is, you can have a subject line that sucks or one that's good. And the good one's going to net you, if you own a company, about $1 million a year, if you're a $5 million a year company. So you might want to answer the next cold call from the person who's selling you something, because mostly when we don't think something works, because we're not paying attention to why it's not working. And we find it's not really working that well. And we'll go, oh, companies will sit there for years on a 12% open rate and be like, well, that's not good. And I would say, I don't think so. But what is your TAM? Because if they said, well, right, it's this, I'd say that's great for CEOs of manufacturing firms, 10,000 people or more. I'd say that's pretty good. Absolutely. And so we always have to say it depends, because the second we say as an SDR, like, that's bullshit, I'd have someone else be like, I use only AI emails and I'm a millionaire. And I'd be like, right, and he's right too.
Well, I think it's funny because I don't like the answer, it depends either, but sometimes it depends. And, in my scenario, like when a company gets on the phone with us and say, well, every question, I can tell you
how many appointments can you book?
That's the guaranteed question. There is not a meeting that you will do in our world that will not be asked that question. 18, and I will tell 000. You, it always depends. And my answer is always the same, but here's the deal. When I tell them the answer, they totally understand what I'm saying, right?
Oh, can I tell you my old answer and you can score me?
What's your answer?
Depends on three things: the quality of the data.
Yep.
The industry, or I said that the IC, the title we're calling into, and the availability of that data, and really the toughness of that persona. Yeah. And then the person, the SDR. And then I'd say the fourth one we can't control, and that's you, your product.
Exactly.
And, so is that the same sort of pitch, just done differently?
For sure. I mean, we go to, instead of the quality of the data, I also say the amount, right? Okay. So the TAM, like if you have a big TAM, right, there's going to be that's how we just narrow it down from there. So we just do the math. But a lot of the things you mentioned, of course, the reps' abilities, the competition landscape. We had a situation where, we booked 35 meetings with one SDR in the first month of going live. And that's a really good, by the way, really good.
That's
number.
Really good. Yeah.
So 35 meetings booked in one. Well, here's the thing. Guess how many of them showed up?
One. All of them.
No, it was about 5 people showed up.
You can't control that. Yeah.
But here's the deal. Like in the meeting with the client, I said, listen, your website sucks, right? There is no content. You have no social presence. There's nothing branding this company right now. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to book a shit ton of meetings, but the reality of them showing up after they do research, pre-call research on your company is going to be very, very low. And we were
you may as well have a Gmail address or something.
100%. Well, they beefed it up and they started doing some things, and this was a while ago. And so they started doing some things, and now we have a 75% show up rate. And so those are things that, it takes two to tango, I always say. So how many meetings versus when they ask you that question, like there's a lot of variables in that, including a lot on your side of the house too.
Yeah. I see the most content viewed after the first meeting, and whether that's an email being sent or me hearing from the client that, hey, or I'll get the connection request, like you have the first meeting and then like, you move that pucker from proposal to commit when you get 6 other people from the company who view your profile and connect with you.
Right.
In like 2 minutes, you're like, commit, at least in the outsourced SDR world. Now keep in mind, Gabe, I was doing content, and that's one flagpole in my life I got to plant down. I think I did it before any other SDR agency owner did. And it's the only thing I've done right in my life, pretty much. Yeah. But when you can do that, and there are other industries, there are whoever's the first to that thing. So whoever was the first one to cold call people probably got really fucking good. And they're probably like, wow, everybody's picking up, because people catch on and then they grow immune to you, right? So for example, I hear about, SDRs go, well, yeah, I prospect on Reddit. I'm like, do you really? Because it's really hard. It's easy to say in a LinkedIn post you do. Have you ever gone through and trying to figure out, you got to connect with the person that you don't know their name, their XYZ 69er at zengenheiger.com, and you're like, who are you?
Right.
And really they just want to get on there and tell you to fuck off.
Yeah.
And then you go to Twitter and you want to go cry and run home. And I'm just like,
Right.
are you guys really? I mean, because I'm asking you, are SDRs in your agency effective on those channels? I'm not seeing it in real life.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Thank
Not
you.
in B2B. Not at all. We don't do anything from a social perspective other than LinkedIn. I mean, we're focusing on B2B in the majority of our world. And if not, we're doing, inbound if it's not B2B.
Yeah, you
But
may as well sit on Quora and just like crochet the whole time. Like, what are you going to get done? Just look at people bitching?
No, it's not. And it's funny because LinkedIn is actually pretty positive. It
has to
compared
be,
to other social, it's absolutely insane in how positive it is. I don't even want to be in other socials because how negative it is, but LinkedIn's pretty positive. There's some hairy scenarios sometimes, but all in all, it's a really positive platform.
Yeah. Well, and let's admit it. If you went onto Facebook and started like podcasting from your bedroom, your friends would start to be like, it's cool, but they'd make fun of you, right? At first, like in LinkedIn, they make fun of you behind your back. And they're like, and then it works. And they're like, hey, Gabe, how did that work? Do you mind sharing some tips? And that's one thing I've always loved is like being one of the first ones, not in the world to do this. We're not like, but if you went on now and looked at SDR podcasts, there's some really good people who are on YouTube talking about things, but nowhere near the area of like, if you wanted to become a YouTuber, you get lost in a sea of a million people who have really good videos on how to make your first YouTube video. And guess what? Because you're on YouTube, right? Just like on LinkedIn, like here's how to write your LinkedIn post. There's a lot of LinkedIn ghostwriters. Well, yeah, it's LinkedIn. Those same ghostwriters go over to YouTube and shit their pants and go, what do I do? Where do I start?
Yeah.
How do I edit a video? How do I make a short so everybody watches every millisecond because every second of every frame counts? And that's where, in SDRs, hopefully you're still listening, like get good at that. Get good at making shorts and be like, you know what? My cold call is pretty good, but my shorts are sick. Mm-hmm. And when I make a short and I just put it out there, I can word it such a way that I just kind of figure out what to say and I put it out there and all of a sudden I get 50,000 views. I'd be like, okay, that's great. Like, and then follow that up with emails and cold calls because now you've raised awareness. And now when we cold call, this is the thing, liquid death. Did you know the story behind liquid death?
No.
Dude, get this. Sorry, you were going to say something, but this might even change what you're going to say. I'll be quick. Liquid Death.
No, I'll remember.
The founder of Liquid Death worked for Gary Vee, Vaynerchuk Media, head of creative.
Yep.
Resigned because he had this great idea where him and his friends got together for $1,500, got an aluminum can, came up with a graphic online, paid a person on Upwork to do a liquid death model. And they said, I think the world needs this. And so they went on Facebook, created a user group and had 80,000 people within 3 days like their page. And then within 2 weeks, they had people calling them saying, people are asking for your water. Can we buy it? They said, we don't even fucking make water, man. We don't have a company yet. And so then they had to form the company, go raise money. They had the proof of concept. And they're like, give us $3.5 million. There's people who want it. They're like, how do you know? They said, we have $3.5 million in orders and we don't have any fucking water. Anyways, so there you go. That's one hell of an SDR.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
There it is.
So that's
it's
story.
Interesting. Like, no, that it believes this is exactly my point. Like, I think we talked about this last episode, but we really just touched on it. Content for SDRs. Like, people are like, oh, well, my job is just to cold call and email. Yeah, your job is to attract meetings.
Yeah,
your job is to attract leads and qualify them. So you're a mini influencer. I don't even like saying the word mini. Like, you're an influencer. There's a lot of people right now on LinkedIn, and I don't want to say names because I'll leave people out, but there's a lot of SDRs that are on LinkedIn that have tens of thousands of followers, more than you and I combined.
Oh yeah.
And they're doing short videos of just them cold calling and they're crushing right now.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. And I like it. And it's fun.
They'll never not have
exciting.
a job.
100%. But yeah, I mean, just getting in front of a video and making cold calls is just a great way to start being content creators in this space.
That's how I started. 100%. I think I started recording cold calls and being like, I'm going to share these out.
Absolutely.
And you know what, Gabe, you'll look back in 2 years at this video. We will look back together and go like, God, we sucked, and we'll look back and say, oh, we sucked. Good. What? That's life, man. You get to learn, you get to get better all the time. And like, there is no finish line, which requires something that, let's move to the next topic. Mindset matters. Mm-hmm. Gabe, I talked to you about this as a friend. I mean, I think you've seen me crack under pressure, unfortunately, a few times. And mindset is different, but it's the same as a CEO because you still have to have it as an SDR, whether you're a CEO or an SDR. This is 100%. Your big thing, mindset. You teach it a lot. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, like for instance, we all crack, right? We all have bad days. We all have good days. You know, my mentor taught me a long time ago is like, hey, you're on a roller coaster, but the key to any roller coaster is to keep the bar down, right? When you get on
Mm,
the roller coaster, you put the bar down, and that's your job is to keep the bar down.
yeah,
And if you don't do that, you're going to fall out and get hurt really bad. So it could kill you. I mean, literally knock you out of the game. And
yeah,
so when it comes to mindset, we always say attitude is everything. It really is.
yeah,
We do a lot of sports analogies. We do a lot of looking at sales as a game and as something that's fun and playing the game, knowing the rules of the game, and making sure that your head is on straight is the biggest thing. When we're evaluating SDRs, it's really tactical talent, like your abilities, and then your
yeah,
mindset. It's really that simple,
yeah.
right? Are you actually it's three. It's metrics too. So
Mm,
mindset, metrics, right? And then abilities, and in that order. Because if you don't have a good mindset, you can make 100 calls a day, nothing's going to happen. But if you make 100 calls a day and you're really talented, which is the last thing that usually catches up on you, that happens by osmosis, by trial and error. But at the end of the day, mindset is the biggest thing that we train or at least talk about on a daily basis, bring
yeah.
people in to talk about it. It's so important in sales.
Speaking of mindset, I can't believe I kept my face straight the whole time. I've got like thriller lights going off over here. My blue lights are like shorting out, and I was just like trying to
Oh
be
no.
serious.
Oh no.
I'm like,
I see it
I'm
now.
living in the movie Psycho while I'm listening to Gabe talk about
We'll
mindset.
fix
And
it for you.
mindset is something, Gabe, that I think that with a lot of work in the last year and a half, I've felt myself get better. This is something personally that I take upon myself where for me, and I'm gonna reveal some demons about myself. I've always had this thing that when I get pissed, you don't know it on the outside. Inside, my blood is boiling.
Oh
It
yeah.
feels like my limbs are going to explode.
I'm a highly emotional human being. Like I will tell you, like I have this Italian attitude in my life. Like I'm very emotional. Now,
Yeah.
holding that emotion and being patient and being calm and is a very much practice talent. I guess I would say is something that I've been working on my entire life. I'm a
Yeah.
highly emotional guy,
Yeah.
and so just how I am. But yeah, like I said, keeping that bar down and being very self aware of that helps
Mhm.
a lot.
It helps the more you go up too in life. Go up meaning grow up, right? So you get older,
Yeah,
maybe you get a bigger job title. I will say that the one thing that I believe is that relationships matter in life, much how they matter in business. And if
for
you're
sure.
good at them in life, you're going to be good at them in business more than likely. And if you're good at them in business, you'll be good at them in life because they're kind of the same, right? You be honest, you kind of do what you say you'll do. It's the fast, sleazy salesman mentality right from yesteryear of, oh, you come in and sell me hard and then nothing works out and then I hate you
Yeah.
because you promised me the world. And I don't think we live in that place anymore where you can get away with that as easily. They can find you online, Gabe. I mean, if you guys were selling snake oil at Alleyoop, I mean, you're right there. I mean, you'd have
Yeah.
people firing away at your comments. I also think that that's a place, though, where much like SDRs get rejected, I will say that SDRs who create content get doubly rejected sometimes because you also create content and some days you feel like, it just doesn't go anywhere. You hope those days don't happen that much because then you kind of feel like, oh, shit. What if that happens 2 days in a row, and then 3 days in a row, and then if my content doesn't do good, then nobody will see me. If nobody sees me, then nobody will buy. And if nobody buys,
Right.
man, I'm really screwed. And then your
You're
content
in a
really starts to suck because you start
downward spiral.
selling
Yeah.
through the time, just like on a cold call, like your head's going down. You're like, this is not going to work. And if this doesn't work, and if this person's just like the last person, Gabe, I'm just going to do this whole thing where I go, hey, Gabe, this is Steve. Yep. Okay. Yep. No, yep. Zoom in. I got you. Okay, bye. Yep. I'll take it off the list.
Yeah, exactly.
And the difference between that call to me is the same person or the same call happens and a different person goes, hey, Gabe, Steve Schmidt calling. I'll be super quick. The reason I
Hmm.
called is you're a CEO. You work for Alleyoop. You're in a vertical that our solution does great at. Do you want to take 2 more seconds to know what problem we actually solve, or do you want to hang up now?
Right. So
That's
it's
a
funny
different
because
command.
you absolutely nailed it. Here's the deal. You can know what to say and be super talented, like we talked about. Like we can train your skill set and we can teach you exactly what to say, but more importantly, what not to say.
Yeah.
That's the words themselves or the skills. However, the mindset equals the tonality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like your tonality, which is what you just laid out, like the way in which you're communicating, the energy, the tone of voice, the speed of your voice, your intrigue, your excitement, your enthusiasm,
Yeah.
that is fully linked to mindset, right? And so what we say is you got to master the mundane of cold calling. Like
Yeah.
it could be extremely mundane to cold call for sure. However, if you master that and it's all about your mindset, you
Yeah.
can be extremely lethal. So I like what I have sometimes when I get on, I don't do my first call until 9:15, but between 8 and 9:15, I'm listening to calls. It's on play. So anytime someone picks up the phone, automatic. So I'm just listening to calls for an hour, and while I'm doing emails and getting
Oh,
my
that's how you
day
start your day,
organized,
listening to your team.
I start my
Love
day
it.
for an hour and 15 minutes. Literally, instead of listening to a podcast, listening to music, I'm literally listening to live calls happen in
Hmm.
real time, and it automatically is doing that on Sonos speakers in my office. My
Yeah.
wife thinks I'm nuts. So I'm doing my stuff to get ready for my call, but I'm listening to that. And as soon
Yeah.
as I hear someone's tonality, like just in the shitter, I immediately call them up right away and I said, dude, we need a mindset check on this because you
Yeah.
sound like literally that you are just bored out of your mind.
Yeah.
And usually it is they got to go take a walk. We got to do a quick, health check. We got to go
Yeah.
talk through it. Go, send them some information, get them on a video, have them watch this podcast, like get out of the house, do something and come back.
Yeah.
And it's that's where, so when you're listening for mindset problems, you're listening to tonality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's cold calls that make a difference. I had a Thursday back in 2012 where everybody else had left the office, and I decided to keep making phone calls. And I had a superintendent answer that phone call, and it turned into a $3.8 million sale 6 months later. It was school too on top of it. So it's like, all the things were happening. I just kept doing it. And that feels so good too as a
Yep.
salesperson, SDR, because you get the excitement of it working out. And then you're like, this is why everybody does it. It is because when it works so well. You have a conversation, you exchange information. Tonality is heard and felt. You set a meeting on a calendar. You say, you know what? I'm going to send you the invite right now, Gabe. Before I hang up, I
Yep.
want you to accept it. They accept it. You go, I hope they don't cancel. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
That's not the first thing you think, but it feels so good, man.
Yeah.
And that's the attack mode. Now, outbound is always the attack. To me, content is passive. Even if I came out and I'm keen, oh, fuck this, sales.
Yeah.
Still passive, right? I got to find you
Very
online to go
passive.
see it. You're not coming to me.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the always game, right? So even if YouTube's in my living room, the difference to me between outbound and content couldn't be any more different. Like they are two different things.
But they're both
One,
needed. It's like
yeah,
breathing, right? Like you got to breathe out to breathe in, right? You have to
yeah,
have content to have the ability to have outbound. It's just like in and out, passive and active, right? So it's like
yeah.
you have to have the yin and the yang. You have to have both operating and in conjunction of each other. You have to have your content message matching the outbound messaging, and it really keeps your brand on point.
Yeah. Well, if you don't, it's easy as an SDR to skip a day, right? So this is my final segment here that I want to go over with you too, because I've done this thing lately where I've tried to in my head, because I do content every day. I
Mm-hmm.
make content for 18 executives every day too. So some days I'm like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck content. Fuck
Right.
content. This sucks. There's nothing original anymore. I've seen it all and I don't even want to read anything. And then I get down and go, you know what? Get down and do 100 push-ups. I can do like 24 now, right? Or whatever it is. And I'm like, you know what? Because you suck at push-ups. And someone else is doing 100 push-ups going, you know what? That's easy, but I don't love doing it either, but they're really strong. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really tough to see yourself while you're not the person at 100 push-ups, but it's also hard for them to do it. It's still easier, but they've been doing it, but they've earned the work and the discipline of having whatever it is, that strength that they want. If you do content long enough, you're going to get people who eventually come to you and say, I want what you have, what you talk about. If you do outbound long enough, you're going to get people who say that you do all of them at once and you're really good at it. That's when I think you go, okay, that person's on fire. Nobody can stop them. They're magnetic, right?
Yep.
That's you, Gabe. And when I look
Well,
at
you
you,
think,
you've got that though. Not many people
well,
have that.
I mean, I think you can have, and anybody can have it. I mean, there's people you think, well, why the heck is that person famous on YouTube, or why is that person creating content? Like, and it works for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you got to look though. I'm not saying you're good looking. Just to be clear, you're not good looking. Yeah, you have a face
No,
for radio. I'm just saying
for sure.
that
Howard
no,
Stern and me. It's like,
you got a very distinct look. Everybody, who I'm like, Gabe Lulo, they're like, oh, the guy with the silver hair, sitting in the chair, does
as
the
a black
videos. I'm
shirt.
like,
It's funny.
yeah,
I
they
got on
go,
a call today, and he's like, "I just want to let you know, like, you bat 1,000 for having a black shirt on every time I talk to you."
there you
It's
go.
all I wear. It's all I own. It's funny you say that about continually producing content. I mean, you said Gary Vee, right? Like,
Yeah,
everyone knows Gary Vee. Why would he? Like, he has more content than anyone. Like, why would he still do that? Well, I don't think everyone knows him. I think there's people that are coming into the world. People are born every day. People
yeah.
are actually still new to his content, which is kind of insane to think about, but it's true.
Most
And
people wouldn't even know
so
what he's trying to sell them either. They're like, what does he even do? Vaynerchuk Media has nothing to do with most of the people who know who he is, right?
I was watching him literally on Wine Library TV, and he was just tasting wine.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, so like I actually used to live in Northern California and was really get into the whole wine scene. And I was watching him literally taste wine on YouTube.
yeah,
And then he left YouTube and then he came back. Like, and so I've been watching him forever. But at the end of the day, like, why is he still producing so much content? It's because people are still, coming into the fold and learning about him for the first time. And what the most relevant posts are, I think, more important than what he did years ago. So
yeah.
you got to keep doing it, man. Keep doing those push-ups.
Oh man! And if you're niching down on anything, this is where I'm thinking. I've been studying YouTube about 4 hours a day, Gabe, and so I don't know who else out there has studied it, or maybe as a master and could teach me. I'm really immersed in YouTube in terms of like going like I don't know anything about it, right? So I've just admitted it and going, man, okay, here we go down the rabbit hole. My fear is always like, okay, now I don't want to take a lot of time on LinkedIn too, because now I'm doubling my social platforms, right? And I'm like, oh man, there's only so
Yeah.
many hours in a day. So I automatically said,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not going to log into Instagram. I'm not going to log into TikTok. I'm going to study YouTube and not forget about LinkedIn because I love LinkedIn. It's there. It's been obviously very good to me for years, and I want to be good back to it and be a part of its ecosystem. And so I think
Right.
it's even at the age of 46, as a CEO of my own company, successful or not in your eyes, like I'm still learning new things. I'm still learning, like, hey, I'd learn to love how to edit video good or at
Mm-hmm.
all. I'd love to learn what is the secret to get a YouTube to almost automatically get 10,000 views? I sure as hell don't know, Gabe. We're going to be dancing around the streets if we get 1,000 views, but there's formulaic things, just like the framework to a cold call, like the framework to an email, with those people who are like us and geek out about that. It's out there. And so my message to you is, dovetailing off mindset, is there's nothing you can't go get right now. And it's pretty much for free, whether it's a sales methodology,
100%.
whether it's getting inspired, go get it. The world is yours. Nobody can pretty much say that they can't access it now, because if you have a smartphone, which most of the world does, and a plan, you can get to YouTube. And YouTube is going to unlock the world. You can learn AI from MIT for free online.
Right.
You can get a GI certification. My 72-year-old father-in-law is getting a certification to MIT right now because he's like, why not? This is amazing. He's like, we could have never done this when I was a kid. So I just go, man, holy shit, it is amazing. Drink it up. Because if you're not, and you think you want to be the best, guess what? Someone else is sitting up there making the next great video about cold calling, making the next great course, and say, you know what, Gabe, high five. I've loved being an SDR at Alleyoop. I'm going to go open my own thing and go do this. And they're going to hit boom and upload, and they're going to get 40,000 views and 4x Gabe's salary.
Yeah. 100%. You're absolutely right. I mean, we have the most accessible knowledge available to us in the world right now. I mean, and I think it goes back to mindset. Like, is your desire wanting to be the best in your space?
Yeah.
And if your desires, you want to be the best in your space, then the information available to you to do exactly that is completely unlimited and accessible. And so, but if the reality is not everyone wants to be the best in their space.
Yeah.
And so if the mindset is, I don't have that desire to be the best or to be top 5, that's the problem. It's not the lack of information.
Yeah.
It's the willingness to want to be an expert at your craft.
Yeah. And that's okay too. Maybe they're really good past. Well,
No,
you know
fine.
what? There's going to be
Nothing's
good
wrong
things
with
for
it. I'm
everything
just saying,
on
like,
YouTube.
yeah, nothing's wrong with it, but there's been a time for most of our lives where you want that, but you were having to do so much money, investment, and cost to get the
there.
information to be there.
I see
is
what
I'm
you're
saying.
Yeah. Yeah, you couldn't say I don't know how to do calculus anymore because you can go on YouTube and learn it. You can't say
Right.
you don't know another language. You don't need to buy Rosetta Stone because it's on YouTube. Honestly, and I'm going back to the newsletter thing because I'm just now realizing I didn't loop out on that. By the way, as an SDR, if I was prospecting to Gabe to sell it, what I would do is subscribe to his newsletter. Every 2 weeks, I would fire him 2 or 3 sentences specifically about what that newsletter did for me. And I wouldn't say anything about buying my product. And eventually, Gabe would drop some sort of knowledge that was so easy for me to pick up if he was truly trying to solve a problem, that I'd be like, hook, line, and sinker. You said this. I've been following your last 12 newsletters. I guarantee nobody else has. He's going to say, I'll meet with you, man. Because I take time every 2 weeks to write that. You took the time to follow it. There's devil in the details, right? And so if I was an SDR, I would definitely be following Gabe's newsletter. And the hint here is go out and find those people in your spaces who have newsletters, long form blogs, longer form pieces of media. It doesn't always have to be a LinkedIn post, and then use that. And then, flatter them with that, follow them with that. And because flattery will always work, and you get very informed when you start to follow people on a consistent basis. So that was my little SDR nugget out there. Is maybe don't make a newsletter. You could, right, and try and carve it out in your space. But I'd rather follow the newsletters of the people I'm trying to follow who maybe have more experience and thought leadership in this space.
Yeah. I mean, just a quick fun fact. What we went with the newsletter over the weekend. It's Tuesday right now. It doesn't matter the exact day and time because I know this will be posted later. But from a Saturday posting to a Tuesday, as of right now, which 1.5 business days has passed, and 5 SDRs are now on my calendar for interviews that want to meet here from the newsletter.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, and of course, we have client conversations happening too, but, those are just more, faster results. But at the end of the day, like 5 people say, hey, I read your newsletter. Can I work at your
They want to
company?
work for a leader like you. They want to
Yeah,
they want someone to talk like that once in their life, let alone every other Sunday or Saturday, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think newsletters, if you're an SDR, you can use newsletters as an opportunity to find a great gig. If you're looking, there's a lot of SDRs looking right now.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, if you want to prospect into those companies, it's a great opportunity, to your point, to get a meeting booked with a high level executive who has a newsletter. It'll be definitely the best way to go.
Yeah. Nothing flatters an author more than someone using their exact words and talking about what it meant for them, because they know not only did they take time to read it, they go, God, I took the time to write that. You took the time to read it and tried to understand it.
Right.
So few people will do that in the world, that I think if you did that, even if you almost copy and paste it and said, this is what it meant to me, you're going to stand out. So I think it's golden. Talked about Keenan with the same thing. They say, hey, Keenan, when people try and sell you stuff, do they use gap selling? He goes, surprisingly, no. And I said, isn't that fucked up? Like, that's what you sell. And they're coming in going like, hey, man, it's great to see you. Like,
yeah.
And he's just like, cool. Like, what are you trying to, like, where am I? Where are you? Where is the gap between us? And he's like, that's what I sell. I'm wearing a hat, a shirt. There's a fucking book on my wall.
Right.
and you're coming in and I'm just like, yeah, that's just the world we live in. Like, they almost they thought about it. They shit their pants. You showed up on camera and they were like, oh, it's Keenan.
Yeah.
And, it's just preparation, the extra inch, all the little things, mindset. If we got it all right, we wouldn't be sitting here hosting a podcast on YouTube. We'd probably be running country somewhere, Gabe. But until then, we'll keep perfecting the craft as well. I'm going to let you.
I'd rather do this.
I think so too. We ended last week with a quote. Think of something from this past week. It doesn't have to be a quote. Think of something that blew your mind in the last week and share it with everybody else. And it might take you a second. Something that you heard and you go, holy crap. Or something that you saw and it just blew your mind.
I didn't realize that there was 9 social media platforms out there.
9.
I mean, like, that's 9. Like, that, I couldn't believe it. I can't list them all out, but
yeah,
there's apparently 9 social media platforms. Because there's a lot of turbulence right now with TikTok and a lot of things happening in social. Like, that is a lot. So to your point earlier, it's like, I'm just managing, LinkedIn and YouTube. But if you start listing them all out, there's a lot that's out there. And so my point is pick an audience that you want to attract and then focus on the one that is the best for that. And that's what we're doing. Obviously, we're in enterprise sales, but LinkedIn is our home. YouTube is a great second, but 9 is a huge number, don't you think?
Yeah, that's a big number. It's uncomfortable because I just want to know and learn them all. And there's only so much life to live. And I'm like, I got to get YouTube down, and I got 7 more to go, Gabe. Come on, man.
Like, I don't want. Yeah, exactly. So I think, spending your time wisely and creating the content and doing the things that we're talking about is the way to go in this one. But I just was kind of impressed by that this week.
Devil's in the details. Something I learned. I watch a girl who makes a coffee podcast on YouTube. Okay, so we're talking, her and her husband were like, we love coffee. Let's get a video camera and make coffee, whatever. And then they won the 100,000 viewers thing, and they got the YouTube thing, and they got the million. I'm like, fuck, you just make coffee, man. And they said, it's so specific that we learned when we analyzed our watch times that we had one video that dropped off the very last second by 43%. And we thought, and they only had certain many views, and they said, let's edit that out so we don't get penalized for the drop of watch time. Because whatever it was, like, it fizzled out. Like, it didn't last.
Right.
Because you have to be like, on YouTube. You cannot let people drop for a second. And they said they just went in, edited the last second out, had 1.6 million views the next day. Because the drop on the time, like, nobody dropped off it. So now it scored it as a perfect video, and it went right to the top. And they said, if you learn the algorithm of LinkedIn, the algorithm is the audience. But what they do know is what a good post is and isn't. They know the structure and the context. They don't look at your post. They said, get this right. The algorithm is nothing more than the first few audience members looking at it. That is it.
Yep.
And if they like it, that's the algorithm. It is not, oh, now we go to people with this decision maker title. Nope, it doesn't do it that way. Do the first 6 people like it? And if one of those 6 people too, great. Now there's 12 people. Do 2 of those 12 people like it? And that's the algorithm. And as it branches out, and that to me reminds me that algorithm equals audience. I don't like the algorithm. Substitute audience. I don't like the audience. Really, you're saying is, I don't like the way the algorithm does with my posts. Well, you're saying, I don't think the audience likes my posts, and maybe I should write differently for them. And then the algorithm will magically change. And so it's just a good reminder that nothing is completely out of our control. And there is no algorithm that's smart enough to know where to put your post. It is just going to start putting it out there. And if people like it, it'll keep going.
To paraphrase it into a sentence is what I'm hearing is make great content.
Yeah.
If you just make great content, your audience will like it. If your audience will like it, your algorithm will get it to more people. It's just a never-ending cycle in a positive way. Yeah. So if you make great content and you take it seriously, obviously is the first key to doing anything great, then you're going to, you're going to break the algorithm, work with the algorithm. I don't know how to say it, but the algorithm is going to work for you. You know what I mean?
Dave Ramsey, algorithm works pretty well for him. He's one of the old YouTube Gs, man. He's like, that's where I got my start. He goes,
yep.
He goes, you think it doesn't work? He goes, man, I'm Dave Ramsey, man. He goes, I own the world. Come on.
Exactly.
And he used to have cassette tapes. I mean, he's old like my dad. They went around in the 70s
100%.
and 80s and sold cassette tapes and go speak in hotels, smoking cigarettes. And I got to get a copy of this cassette. Come to my hotel room. I'll burn you one. Like, woo, let's party. I'm like, holy shit, we're living in a different time.
Remember burning CD-ROMs with an external CD-ROM drive?
Myself. Like leaning back.
When I got my external CD-ROM drive, I was fire, man. I was so excited.
Yeah, people come over and burn it. I'm like, it's going to be like 2 hours. This could be quick. They're like, 2 hours is all? I'm like, that's it.
Remember like when you like, sorry, this is fun. Hey, remember then when we were walking uphill? But either way, like I remember like making mixtapes like on the radio. And like the radio, like, DJ was like on the first 5 seconds. And then like on the end, you know what I mean? Like you're hitting play and hit
I requested for Melissa in 6th grade when we knew each other. I requested a song and recorded, because you'd want to get the song you requested. Yeah. So you'd listen to it and he's like, oh, right, coming up soon, Cinderella. After the break, you're like, Cinderella, that's me. Yeah. And I'd sit there, you're in bed and you're like, and play record. And then you play record just right.
Play
records.
Yep.
And then it wouldn't. Oh, son of a bitch! The tape. There's no tape left. It wouldn't go down.
Yep.
And so
100%.
And you don't have another tape. You're screwed, man. You can't run down the hall, open up the hall closet, find a bunch of cassette tapes, take a pencil, stick it in one. Kind of wind it back.
That's the true definition of a mixtape. Now we send playlists on Apple Music to each other. Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. And those people were probably started on TikTok. That's the thing, is those artists were probably born on TikTok. Hey, man, I'm in love with it. We live in a crazy time, but, if it's up to me, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, Gabe. So thank you to everybody who listened to us. This is the second episode of SDR. And Gabe, give them some parting words, brother.
Well, I just want to say, speaking of mindset, if you're listening to this, it's probably because you're in the sales game. If you're in the sales game, you probably got hit in the face a bunch of times verbally with no's. Shake it off, get back on the horse, and make sure your tonality is high and exciting and enthusiastic, and you'll have a good day.
There's no crying in baseball. That's my saying.
That's right.
Everybody, peace out. Be good.
Love it.